Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 303, the thin line between support and control. Well, welcome back to this month where we're focusing on relationships. What are healthy ones, what are unhealthy ones, and the impacts that they have on our lives. We've been talking about, and we'll continue to talk about, communication, behaviors, and looking at the changes you might want to make in your environment, aka your relationships, and yourself. So today we're going to be digging into a tricky but I think very important topic, and it's one I run into all the time with clients, and how sometimes what we call support actually slips into the realm of control. And it can happen before we even realize it. Maybe you've been on the receiving end where you're sharing a struggle and suddenly the other person is telling you what you should do. Or maybe you notice yourself stepping in to quote unquote help someone, but deep down you know it's really about your own discomfort with their choices. Love and control can get tangled up so easily, but the truth is, support and control feel very different to the person who is receiving it. And today I want to help you start spotting that difference, whether you're the one overstepping or you're dealing with someone else's control, which has been disguised as care. So before we get into that, I just want to give a shout out to all of you working so hard on yourself, clients and listeners alike. I just continue to be amazed at how brave you guys are becoming and the changes that you're making and the insights that you're having and the ways you're starting to love yourself more and have better boundaries and not settle for less than you deserve. And you've had to make some really hard choices in your life, whether it's letting go of a toxic relationship that you wished was healthier, maybe a toxic work environment, maybe stepping back from family or a friendship you thought was going to be there forever for you. And you've been making choices that say, I may love these people, but I need my sanity and I need clarity and I need peace. So if you're working on that, if you're trudging through, keep going. Don't give up. Don't stop. It gets better. Okay, so let's talk about what support actually means. I think support is more about presence, not direction. And I think it's a really simple way of really defining what support is and what it isn't. Because it's about being willing to sit in the discomfort with somebody without trying to fix it right away. And that's not easy, especially if it's someone you really care about. So what it looks like is saying, I hear you. That sounds really hard. What do you need from me right now? What it doesn't look like is, well, if I were you, here's what I'd do. When no one even asked you, you didn't even consider what they needed in the moment. That's where we can be, ironically, very selfish in our helping, if that makes sense. Support honors the other person's autonomy. We have touched on that in many different ways here on the show, where each of you is in a place of choice, and that's where you should stay. Because what you want to message to the other person is that I trust that you're capable of figuring this out, and I'll walk beside you while you do. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm going to be there. I'm just not going to do it for you or tell you how you should. In contrast, let's talk about what control looks like, because it can have so many faces. So many disguises. And that's why we don't see it often. And I've had this conversation actually this week with a couple of clients and other people, how what looks like love and care isn't. But on the face of it, you may not see the control at first. That's why it's really important to talk about this stuff and label it. So control, again, wears a lot of disguises, and it can sound like care. But guess what? It ends up leaving the other person feeling small. And I want to stop here for a minute and say, you may not even realize you're feeling small. You just feel kind of uncomfortable and you're not sure why. That's what I mean by that. Okay? Because typically you will draw people who are controlling into your life if you are kind of disconnected to how you really feel and what you really think and who you really are. But it ends up making you feel uncomfortable and small. So what are some common ways that it shows up? Well, first one is advice dumping. Like you can't resist telling them what to do even when they didn't ask, or someone can't resist telling you. So unsolicited, there's your key. It's always risky and dangerous when we're giving unsolicited advice or receiving it. The next one is conditional support. And here's one that a lot of us do not like to admit, but we know how crappy it feels to be on the receiving end. And that is that the approval or affection is tied to them choosing your way or you choosing their way. Do you see how it is control and not caring because the person offering the help has conditions and they're bent on a certain outcome, and that's about them, not you. It may not even be what's best for you in the end. Control looks like micromanaging. I mean, that one we see more often, but it can look loving, like constantly checking in on you or reminding you of what you should do. Don't forget. That's not their place. More obvious is guilt trips. What do you mean? After all I've done for you, you're going to choose that? Right. And some people aren't bold enough to say that out loud, but they will have a response. It might be an eye roll, a sigh, body language, some kind of vibe that they're giving off that there is disapproval, that you did not take their advice, do the things that they thought you should do to solve the problem. And I want you to check in and say, wow, have I done that? Have I been guilty of that as well? Those of you who have kids may fall into that camp. It's hard to let go when you have kids. Someone you really care about, you want them to make the best decisions. And then finally, some fear-based warnings. Always highlighting what could go wrong if they don't listen. Well, if you don't do this, this could happen kind of thing. As if they didn't already know that. More emotionally honest would be, I'm afraid if you choose that, it won't go well. One of the aspects I really want to focus on today is looking for control and being on watch for it early in new relationships. Whether that's a romantic partner or a new friend or a new boss. Because sometimes what feels like incredible, loving, intense support at the beginning is really about gaining power. Now, the most obvious that we hear a lot about these days is love bombing. So they overwhelm you with compliments, maybe gifts, attention, doing stuff for you. It seems so supportive, and it usually comes at a time where you need it most. You are most vulnerable. You got a lot on your head, a lot coming at you, and they know that. And so they give you the vibe that, hey, I'll take care of you. You don't need to worry about a thing. We got this. It's okay. I'm here. But underneath is a push for dependence. Because a good friend may show up and say this, and she or he may mean it, but they're not trying to control you, because what's going to happen is once the acute phase is over, your crisis, right? They're going to back off and they're going to say, okay, I know you need to take care of this. I'm going to step back a little bit. Tell me what your plan is. Tell me how I can support you. Okay. It says love bombing. Too good to be true is often too good to be true. Typically, there's an agenda tied to it. Some people may also love bomb because they're people pleasing and they want you to think they're fabulous. The other thing you want to look at is over-involvement too soon. Okay, a new partner or a friend inserts themselves into your choices very quickly. They get into your time, your decisions, even your feelings. And that's not appropriate, nor is it healthy. And then here and there, they'll sprinkle in subtle discouragement, and it doesn't stand out, so you may not notice it. So instead of cheering you on your independence, they'll chip away at it slowly, saying things like, "Are you sure you can handle that right now?" Or, "Maybe you should just let me do it. Let me take care of that for you. You got too much going on." These behaviors masquerade as care, but they carry a very hidden message saying, "You can't handle life without me." And that's not support, that's control. This can often be combined with subtly isolating from your real support, like family and friends, by creating enough small dramas and putting ideas in your head that maybe your sister really doesn't want to be what you need, or maybe your friends are too much of a pain in the ass or too judgy or whatnot. But these things are very subtle, so they're little one-offs here and there, not enough to make you pause. My point is, you should not be hearing that at all, nor should you be saying that to anyone. So why do we confuse the two so easily? Like, why do so many of us think we're being supportive when we're actually controlling? The first one is family conditioning. If you grew up with parents who equated criticism with care, well, then you might think that nagging is love. And you probably were sold that bill of goods where mom said, I'm so worried about you. I say this because I love you, kind of thing. A lot of fear. We want to prevent loved ones from failing, hurting, or choosing differently from us. So a lot of times we may also mistake someone else's control for care in that regard. Oh, but they had great intentions. They just want to take care of me, kind of thing. And anxiety is something we don't talk about enough in this aspect, where control can feel like a way to calm our own nerves. We think if they do it our way, we'll be safe. Again, do you see how it's about you and not the person you're trying to help? And in new relationships, love bombing can be so confusing because, boy, it feels so flattering. And if you have a lot of unmet emotional needs going on in your life and that person's trying to fill them, try seeing straight while getting those needs met, or supposedly met. Healthy support doesn't rush. It doesn't overwhelm. In fact, it respects timing and boundaries, and it's real. Okay. So let's talk about how it feels on the receiving end. Well, think about a time when someone's help left you feeling unseen. Instead of feeling supported, you walked away either second-guessing yourself, pissed off, maybe resentful, disappointed, hurt. Remember, support makes you feel stronger. Even when you're scared, it gives you courage. Control makes you feel weaker. And over time, being on the receiving end of control can really erode your self-trust, because you start to think, well, maybe I really can't handle this on my own. And that's the opposite of love. Someone who really loved you would want you to feel appropriately independent, to believe in yourself, to trust yourself, and ask for help when you need it, of course. But that's never supposed to be undermined. The only people we can control is ourselves. How can we work on practicing healthy support in our relationships? Well, here's how we can shift from control to true support. Whether it's in long-term relationships or new ones that we form. Well, the first one you have to do is pause, take a beat and say, wait a minute, and ask yourself, am I helping or am I trying to steer something in a certain direction? What kind of outcome do I have my hands on here? And what are my fears if that outcome doesn't play out? Like, really take ownership of it. Do the detachment. What's about them versus what's about you, and focus on what's about you. Then have some humility and some boundaries and say, and ask permission. say something like, well, would you like my perspective or do you just need me to listen? Like, how can I show up for you? And then validate first. Empathy first, everything else second. Validate first. That sounds so overwhelming. I can see why you're stressed. Guys, that's what we need first. That's what they need first. We all need it first before anything else. We just need some mirroring back on where we are. And then see if you can offer without strings. Say something like, hey, I'm available. If you want me to pick you up, just let me know. Not, well, you need me to drive you right now. Every once in a while, if someone is in shock or something tragic has happened, yeah, okay, that's when we step in and we're a little more directive. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the regular day-to-day stuff. And when it comes to new people in your life, healthy support should look like this for you. The other person gives you space to move at your own pace as you are ready. They respect your independence instead of rushing to take over. They don't assume that they should do that. They offer encouragement without strings attached. And they show consistency over time while also taking care of themselves, not just all this intensity up front. Remember, healthy support doesn't flood you. It feeds you slowly, and I think it should steady you. You shouldn't feel all spun up. You should feel peaceful. So we have to ask, okay, where might I be crossing the line? Here are a couple things I want you to think about this week as you go through your conversations. First one is, do I often jump in with advice before someone even finishes their sentence? Like, am I chomping at the bit to do that? Do I feel anxious when other people make choices I wouldn't make? And again, feeling that anxiety is one thing, acting on it is another. It's normal for people that you care about to make you anxious sometimes when they're not doing what you'd like for them to do. And you might have good reason, and it's not the point. So I tell clients, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can be right. You can be absolutely on point. You can care a hell of a lot. You can want really good things for them. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're trying to control them. And finally, do I need people to do it my way so I can relax? And that's where the detachment work is hard but helpful. Because again, if so, that's not about them. It's about us. And it's about boundary work, self-regulation. And that's where trust in others comes in. And if you can't trust them, then that's a whole different conversation we need to have. So here's what I want you to walk away with today. Support empowers, control disempowers. Fear and anxiety often drive us to confuse the two. Healthy support means presence, means being there, not pressure. And it doesn't matter if it's a long-term relationship or the early stages of a new one. So the next time you find yourself about to jump in, ask, am I showing up beside them or am I trying to steer them? And that little moment of awareness can make all the difference. Also, in reverse, you can ask yourself, does it feel like they're showing up to walk beside me? Or do I feel like they're trying to take over here and kind of nudge me in this direction? Some more things to think about is think about where have you felt controlled when you really needed support? And how often did you turn to that person again for support, right? And where might your help actually be crossing into control? And then I want you to think about, what does true support look like for you, especially in new relationships? Where are your boundaries? What is non-negotiable? There's a lot of things to think about, both looking at ourselves, but also being wary and on alert for other people who are trying to have control over us. Because let me tell you, I get to walk through those circumstances with a lot of clients, and it isn't pretty, and it often doesn't end well. It's a lot to be drugged through. And so it's really important to be proactive, especially in new relationships, so that you can take care of yourself early on. So today we talked about how sometimes what we call helping is actually about managing our own anxiety or steering someone else's choices, or someone trying to do that to us. And we talked about how love and care can really get mixed up with control, often without anybody realizing it. And then we looked at how this shows up in long-term relationships and how it can sneak in early with new partners or friends. And they end up being behaviors that may feel supportive on the surface, but chip away at our independence and our self-trust. So we talked about how support strengthens us and control weakens us, and all the little things we want to look out for, both in others and ourselves. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope today was helpful. Wherever you are in the continuum of working on this, be proud of yourself. This is not easy stuff. But I can guarantee you that if you work on this and get your relationships healthier, especially how you show up for people, everything's going to change. Okay, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.